Here's a quick take from the YoJoeShow podcast.
There may be an actual good piece of news in the aviation community, a mystery that may be solved now, finally. Amelia Earhart, who led the way for women pilots and encouraging a lot of organizations that support women in aviation. There was always a question as to where her plane went down. She disappeared while trying to
Nearly 100 years ago.
circumnavigate the Earth, and she disappeared. It looks like they may have found her plane. This is the closest to a real find, and we should know soon enough. But let's put up a story about that because I think that's another really cool piece of news. Always good to have some good news. Let's take a look and we can discuss it.
One of the greatest mysteries in aviation history may finally be solved. For decades, explorers have been trying to find the wreckage of aviator Amelia Earhart, who was attempting to become the first female pilot to circle the world. The 39-year-old and her navigator, Fred Noonan, vanished while in the middle of that flight back in 1937. No trace of their remains or of the plane were ever found. But now, Purdue University researchers say they have found very strong evidence of Earhart's plane. The group is set to travel to the South Pacific to determine if this so-called visual anomaly in the water off of a remote island is, in fact, the wreckage of the lost plane, which is in a lagoon on a small island between Australia and Hawaii. So I'd like to welcome in the Chief Marketing Officer at Purdue University, Kelly Hiller. Kelly, great to see you. Thank you for giving us some time on this today. This is so fascinating. And we know that this underwater object, what really got me, it has been visible in photos that date back to 1938. So that is the year after she and her navigator disappeared. At this point, is there any doubt in your mind, in the minds of these researchers, that this is the Earhart wreckage?
Well, there's definitely a lot of compelling evidence, and we're lucky to go along on this journey. The initial discovery of the satellite images was driven by the Archaeological Legacy Institute, and they reached out to Purdue. And over the years, we've had many individuals and groups reach out to Purdue University, claiming they had evidence of where the plane was located. And to this point, we had not viewed the evidence as substantial as what we are viewing in these images that, again, were started capturing in 2020. And over time, there was a historic tropical storm that really shifted the landscape of that area and has revealed more and more of what appears to be the Lockheed Electra 10E. So we're excited to go take a look and hopefully solve one of aviation's greatest mysteries.
Let's hope. And the question is, are her remains, were they on the island? Did she ever make it to the island? But at least
It's a phenomenal story. I think Amelia Earhart is a real true hero. She holds a lot of records in aviation. So in 1922, she had the first altitude record by a woman for over 14,000 feet. And this is the propeller plane without any pressurization, right? In 1928, first woman to fly across the Atlantic as a passenger. 1930, she set several speed records, including 181 miles an hour, obviously in a prop plane. 1930, she says 1931, auto gyro altitude record. You can elaborate on that further. 1932, she was the first woman and second person after Charles Lindbergh to fly solo across the Atlantic. In 1932, she was the first woman to fly solo nonstop coast to coast across the United States. A whole bunch of other records in terms of speed and distance, like Honolulu to Oakland, Hawaii to mainland, etc. 1937 was when she was attempting to circumnavigate the globe, and there were people, radio operators, and they were looking for her. The story is fascinating. If you're unfamiliar, you should definitely look into it in depth. But she's a truly phenomenal person and an inspiration for millions, maybe even billions of women around the world. And humans, not just women.
Absolutely. But she did ultimately in a male-dominated career path, certainly back then, even more, but still today, it's very important that there be always someone who's like the leader, who's like the person who said, yeah, because I'm a woman, that shouldn't stop me. I think of the story of my mom, who she wanted to be a chemical engineer, and she was told, you're a woman, you can't do that. Obviously, this was a long time ago. They said you could be an accountant, you could be a teacher, they gave her like a list of things she could be as a woman, and she wound up going into accounting. But some people were hard-headed enough and said, no, she said she was going to be a pilot and flew all kinds of different aircraft, including gyrocopters, which were mentioned, which is like a helicopter, but not quite. It gains its upward movement from having thrust pushing it forward. And she was an innovator, and she basically set the stage for other women to try to do what she did. It's really a tragedy that she didn't succeed in making it through her entire flight and that she disappeared. But bottom line is, like anything, there are people that had to lay sometimes with their blood, the groundwork for future heroes, future people that were going to carve the path. And she absolutely is one of those individuals. So it is important to try to find, and that might give us some more indication as to what ultimately happened. There are organizations like the 99s, which support women in aviation. I think of any women, young girls out there who have an interest in a career in aviation, they should look up organizations like the 99s to be able to go and connect with other women who are looking for, and men who support the women as well, careers that are still predominantly male dominated.
Also, make sure to check out if you have any interest in learning to be a pilot.
Learntopilot.com.
The pilot.
Learntopilot.com. Yes. Thanks for the plug. And as we'll bring back some more information on this once we know more, hoping to have some good news.
Be sure to like, comment, subscribe, hit the bell, and watch all our content, including episode 23 of the YoJoe Show podcast.